And, you know, I put in my novenas, I should get my requests. My intentions are good. And when they don't, by golly, I'm upset. I know, I as sure as I'm sitting here, I want to interpret God. But I know, just because I know God over the years, half the times he doesn't answer our requests is because to teach us that he is not a candy dispensing machine. I put in my prayers, I expect answers. If I put in novenas and rosaries, I doubly expect the answers because I put them in. And you know what God says to that? That's nice, dear. I'm God, you're not. And that's the lesson to be learned. Do you see that? Now, sometimes we get our intentions and we think, oh, what a great, oh, I have the secret of prayer now. All I have to do is this and I get whatever I want. Do you see that? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See, there's something flawed in that thinking. But I guarantee you, you will talk to people that go to Mass and they say, well, this novena always works. It's always worked for me. And I just laugh to myself. I'm going, you know, you don't see that. You don't see that. But it did work. I prayed and I got a new car when I needed it. You know, God is so good. Or I prayed it and my cousin she got a baby that she's been looking for. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I prayed to St. Jude and my aunt's marriage was cleared up. I mean, they're happier now than they ever were before, you know? And you talk and you can't convince them otherwise. It's just magic. And it's like, what that is God being gracious. And what is our response to that graciousness? Gratitude. Not that we've gotten some magic formula that we need to now tell everyone on how we can coerce God into doing our bidding. You know, I really worry about things like that, but it's like, you know, it's not my worry. God's in control. He knows what he's doing. See, that's me. See, you see how that's me? It's like, no, God tells me, you know, I'm in control of the universe. Trust me, you don't have to worry about person X. And there's a worry about your own self. Mind your own business. Constantly being reminded by that by God for me. Mind your own business. You're worrying about other people and their spiritual development. Worry about your own self. Amen? Because if you worry about your own self and your relationship to God, guess what? As you grow in holiness, that will naturally draw people to you. Mother Teresa never had a PR person working for her. You know that? Padre Pio did not have a PR person working for him. How are we going to get more people coming to Mass, Padre? Have you seen the videos of like his last Mass? People were running into the church. Are you kidding? Do you think anyone had to PR that? No, they had to keep people out. Why? Because of who he was naturally in his relationship to God. Do you see what I mean? That's the kind of people we need to develop in ourselves. Worry about your own self. Work on your love relationship with God. Amen? And the deeper that goes, and the more authentic it is, you will naturally draw people to God through you. That is the best form of evangelization in this reporter's opinion that you could do. Jesus never had any trouble getting people to come to him. You know? I mean, he had to get away from the crowds. Yes, they were after miracles, but that wasn't it only. There was something about Jesus that you loved or you hated him. He was one of those people that you loved or you hated. There was no in between. I'm sure if we lived back in the time when Jesus was walking and talking, we'd be one of two people. We love him for what he says and does, or we hate him for what he says and does. Period. I don't think there was anyone, well, he's kind of, I don't know. I don't think there was anyone like that. I really don't. I really don't. Because there are people nowadays that invoke that kind of, you either love them or you hate them. But there's not like, well, that kind of about. And I think Jesus was one of those kinds of people. You either loved him or hated him, period. There was no wishy-washiness about it. Why? I think it was just his authenticity. I just think it was the way that he presented himself. You know? I think that's just the way he was. And the saints are that way too. The saints are that way too. You love them or you hate them. There's not really much difference. Maybe not all the saints, but I would say a good portion of them were that way. I mean, just my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. If you know a saint where during his lifetime people are like, he's all right, I guess. You know, Ignatius, Loyola, I guess, whatever, you know. Maybe, I guess so, but I think for the most part that the authentic lives that these people lived were such that they evoked this love towards God because of who they were, or you just were repelled by them for whatever reason. For whatever reason. Just a thought. That's a long-winded answer to your one question about Martin Luther. But I think that this is what he was suffering from, was this kind of torment in his soul about how to reconcile his life with what he knew God was like, and how he was projecting his own father onto it. I'm sure that there was an element of that in his life. Anything else that evoked from that movie that we saw last week?
The Martin Luther Church, their creed would still say we believe in the Universal Holy Catholic Church in their creed.
That may be so, because the word Catholic itself doesn't mean the name of the church. The word Catholic itself, that's a good point. Glad you brought it up. This is a common thing, especially nowadays, since we have Presbyterians and Lutherans and Episcopalians and Pentecostals. Catholic is just seen as another kind of Christian. Kind. The truth is, the word Catholic itself, it comes from Greek. Catholicos, I believe, is the Greek word, if I'm not mistaken. And the word itself in Greek means universal. All that word means is universal. The word was first used to describe the church by Saint Ignatius of Antioch approximately 110 AD. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was his letter to the Smyrnians that he used this term. Let me see if I can find it. Well, let's see. Catholic Answers is always a good place to start. Aha, it was the letter to the Smyrnians. The Greek word of the word means according to the whole or universal. Ignatius used the term to refer to the visible authoritative church. Let me blow this up a little bit so that you can see it. I love this quote. See that you follow the bishop, even as Jesus Christ does the Father, and the presbytery as you would the apostles, and reverence the deacons as being the institution of God. Let no man do anything connected with the church without the bishop. Let that be deemed a proper Eucharist, which is administered either by a bishop or by one whom he has entrusted it, like priests. Wherever the bishop shall appear, let the multitude of the people also be. Even as where Jesus Christ is, there is the universal church. Letter to the Smyrnians, chapter 8. This is the first use of this word in Greek, which means universal, to describe the church. It's the first time that this was used to describe. So it wasn't the name of the church. It wasn't the Catholic Church. It was the universal church. The word Catholic itself just means universal, because it's Greek. This whole letter was written in Greek. So if we were to look at this in Greek, it would say, let there be the Katholikos Ecclesia. That's what it would be in Greek. And all that word means is universal. Or, as it says up here, according to the whole. Okay? Now, what's interesting about this quote, I like, is that he describes the importance of the bishop. Why? Because the bishops were directly appointed by the apostles to govern and guard the church. We see this in the book of Timothy by St. Paul. Paul entrusts Timothy to pass on to other faithful men what he was given to him by the laying on of hands. So from the time of Jesus forward, all of the bishops have had someone lay their hands on them to confer the gift of holy orders upon them. And their number one task was to guard the faith that was given to them. The apostles passed it on to people that they could trust. Paul passed it on to Timothy. Timothy passed it on to someone else, and someone else, and someone else, and someone else, etc. All the way down to Bishop Gomez in the Archdiocese of LA. Do you understand that? That if you were to trace Bishop Gomez's ordination, you know, who ordained him, who ordained him, who ordained him, back. If you could somehow trace that all the way back And you probably could, if you took enough time and effort, you would eventually wind up at one of the apostles, who were appointed by Jesus himself. Yes?
Yes.
Yes? So this is why the early fathers, all of them universally, would say obedience to the bishop is as obedience to Christ, because they are the guardians of the faith. That's exactly what Ignatius is saying in this little quote that we have here. And this is how we protect ourselves from false teachers. Because these people, these bishops, learned it from the apostles themselves, who learned it from Christ. Do you see that? And so when we get to another generation from this, another 100 years, to Saint Irenaeus, he will describe it as, this is how we counteract all of the heresies that are going on today. Hence the name of his book, Against Heresies. And he's going to say that the way that we do this is that we cling to the bishops, because they receive from the mouths of the apostles what they got from Christ. And this is how we ensure we have the true faith. Because the bishops got it from the apostles, who got it from Christ. So these false teachers who come around saying, I have secret knowledge, are full of themselves. That's what he is eventually going to say. And down through the centuries, this is how we have kept the faith, by maintaining adherence to the teachings that were given to the apostles through the bishops. Okay, this is what we call apostolic succession. That Bishop Gomez has the same authority over us as if he were St. Matthew, St. Philip, St. Thomas, St. Peter, St. Andrew, St. Bartholomew. You get it? It's like if you took Bishop